Hi everybody, it's Dante Starshine here. Welcome to this video. We're going to talk about the Jupiter retrograde that is beginning in 2 days, September 4th, right as Venus retrograde is finishing. Both of these planets are going to be moving very slow, as around the time when planets begin or end a retrograde motion, they're in direct motion, they're stationary, and that's the most sort of introspective, slow-moving, and deadened kind of phase of any planet's period, any planetary cycle. So I'm going to talk about this according to the tropical Western astrology system and give some insight per each sign how this retrograde is going to impact you and what you might be able to do with it in these times. First of all, I want to talk about the general energy of it. So we're coming into this retrograde, as I've said, with Venus and Jupiter in direct motion and moving very slow around the same time, and they are very close to each other in a square, in a very tight square. Squares are these 90-degree points of tension that create the sort of energy of conflict that allows for us to grow. They relate to the planet Mars, so they have a lot to do with that energy of aggression, willpower, and drive, and they really energize things. Though if we aren't careful with these squares, they can create conflicts and they can create unnecessary tension. And if we bring awareness to that tension and we use it in harmonious ways, then beautiful things can take place. So Jupiter and Venus are planets with very different energies. They are, in some senses, planets that are opposed to each other's interests. According to the Vedic thought, Jupiter is the teacher of the Devas, or the beings with light, and Venus is the teacher of the Asuras, or the beings without light. Now, they're both benefic planets and they're both teachers. And this is a key aspect into their energy, that these planets bring a sort of wisdom. Jupiter brings this otherworldly wisdom. Venus brings this material wisdom. So, Venus is causing us to want a lot of worldly desires, and Jupiter is causing us to want very spiritual or metaphysical desires, or things that bring us more knowledge and purity and growth in our lives. Whereas Venus wants to enjoy and Venus wants to create. And so we might experience this manifest as a tension between the desires in us for betterment and growth and purity versus the desires for pleasures and creativity and art and beauty and love and all of these things. And this tension is going to be the most prevalent through the first several weeks of September. Around mid-September, that square is exact. And this time will also be very sleepy for Jupiter, as Jupiter is in this sort of slow motion period. And then in October, Jupiter starts to pick up speed, and Jupiter is moving fast in retrograde. So we say in retrograde a planet is introspecting, according to some train of thought. We also say that a planet is having a stronger and more intense desire. And so the planet, in some senses, becomes more powerful. It's closer to the Earth, or it appears as closer to the Earth. It appears bigger. And actually, yes, it is literally closer to the Earth, and it appears bigger, right? So this is causing a certain level of introspection because that planet is moving backwards and it's reviewing things, but its energy is becoming more intense. And its energy is most intense when it is in that most fast-moving period of the retrograde cycle. So we'll feel the most of this in October, and towards the end of October, Jupiter comes into another square with Mars. Jupiter and Mars get along as buddies in a way, though when they're influencing each other in a square motion, there's the potential to be overly zealous of our beliefs. Jupiter's one shadow is to be a bit overly optimistic in its thought and overly convinced of its own beliefs, and Mars has that aggressive edge. And around that time, towards the end of October, we need to be careful of pushing our beliefs on others or getting into fights and conflicts around our beliefs, especially as Jupiter's picking up motion, becoming more powerful. We might feel a bit possessed by our own belief systems, our own sense of what's right, and impose that onto others in a way that Mars can do. Though by tempering ourselves and practicing our meditations every day and being clear and connected in our heart, we can bring the positive side of that Jupiter energy. Jupiter energy is very much connected with our third eye and our higher cognition. So Jupiter retrograde in general is an amazing time to meditate and to slow down, to bring the awareness within yourself so that you can come to understand, where are you really going? What are you really growing into? What are your priorities? Jupiter really wants us to grow and expand into the highest version of ourselves, and it's the planet that helps us do that. Though in its retrograde cycle, there might be some aspects of what we're focusing on that either go in a deeper level of focus, we put more energy into them, we get more introspected into them, we might become more focused on our creative path, our spiritual path, or anything of this nature. And if our projects are something in the external world, we might really focus more on those projects. It ultimately depends on what your ascendant is and where the other planets fall in your chart. So you want to look at, in the tropical zodiac, the area around, oh my god, why am I forgetting? It's like something like 12 degrees of Taurus, mid-range of Taurus. There's a pretty wide orb. I don't think I'm remembering the degree exactly, but I remember the important parts. So Taurus, Scorpio, Aquarius, and Leo are going to be the signs and planets most affected by this. And also, Jupiter will have the trinal aspect to the other Earth signs that are Virgo and Capricorn. So planets in those placements will benefit a lot. Now let's look at all of the signs of the zodiac, starting with Aries. Aries has Jupiter in the second house, and that's a really great place for Jupiter to be. Jupiter in the second house is focused on the physical things, as that's what second house connects to. It's our possessions, our assets, as in our money, and also our values. So another part of this 12th house, second house, is what we value and what's important to us, and there might be an increase in those areas. Second house is also what we put into the mouth, what we consume. So the one shadow of this is to watch out for excess eating, excess indulgence as a means of maybe suppressing some sorts of energy. And overall, this is a great time for an Aries ascendant. The Taurus ascendant has Jupiter in the first house, and that's an amazing place for Jupiter to be. Jupiter in the first house is bringing healing to the body and helping us get into alignment with ourselves. It might be a time where you have your sense of confidence restored, or it might be a time in which you start to examine yourself in a deeper way and come to new levels of self-understanding. And by working with the energy in this house, you'll find that you redefine yourself in some ways, and your mind becomes clearer through Jupiter's influence. There is, in this first time of September, that potential for some conflict between self and family, as there is this square between Venus and Jupiter, and Venus is then in the fourth house connected to family. So make sure you're finding balance and setting healthy boundaries and stepping into your own sense of self and power and individuation. Jupiter will help with that. For Gemini ascendant, Jupiter is in the 12th house. And the 12th house is the house of endings, spirituality, sleep and dreams, out-of-body and otherworldly experiences, and mental deconstruction and undoing. So Jupiter in the 12th house is kind of intense in a lot of ways because it's bringing light into our shadows, bringing light into what we don't see. And this is a time for spiritual growth. Gemini ascendants might find themselves on some sort of extended retreat or needing to take more time to themselves. They might be wanting to spend more time alone. They might be really focusing on some projects that are very important for their mental health, or beginning work with a therapist or some sort of shamanic practice or something that helps them to really get in touch with themselves and bring, in a sense, a closure to something within that opens up to then Jupiter stepping into the first house later on next year. And all of those juicy things I just said for Taurus then happen for Gemini. And so Cancer ascendant has Jupiter in the 11th house. And this 11th house is a house of friends and friendship. It's a house of extended network. It's a house of the big picture. It's a house of dedicating yourself to a higher purpose and the betterment of humanity, so altruism. And it's also a house of gains economically. And those gains being very much connected to how we are connected to our networks and how we show up for our communities. So Cancer might be thinking a lot in terms of, how do I give back? How do I give back to something bigger? What is my audience? What is my reach? And how do I support people? How do I support the greater healing of all beings? And asking those questions can help a Cancer ascendant bring out those naturally caring instincts and let them reach a wider community. What else? Venus in that second house for Cancer ascendant has Cancer maybe focused on money at this time too. So it is a good time for money for Cancer ascendant if, again, they're doing those things to reach out to their community and be in service. Okay, Leo ascendant. Leo ascendant has just had that Venus retrograde over it for the past while. So Leo ascendant might have been going through a lot of reevaluation and might have been taking time to themselves, might have been ending or beginning a relationship. And now with that Jupiter retrograde beginning in the 10th house, Leo ascendant might be experiencing some change in career. Leo ascendant might be wanting to begin a new career or initiate a big change in career. They might be aiming for a promotion or an entirely new path. Something might be changing in Leo's reputation and how they're being seen in the world and showing up in the world. So kudos to Leo for bringing yourself up to your own next level of bettering yourself and bettering the world. Virgo ascendant has this Jupiter in the 9th house. What an amazing placement for Jupiter. This is creating a trine aspect to the ascendant, so Virgo, as one of those other earth signs, is benefiting a lot from Jupiter's placement here in Jupiter's retrograde. In the 9th house, this is about higher education or spirituality or luck and travel. So Virgo is doing some soul searching, and the soul searching is leading to the bigger changes and bigger growth in their lives. This soul searching might be beginning a new study or beginning new spiritual inclinations. It might be going on a trip. It might be going to a faraway place. Jupiter retrograde might send you on a far off destination. So enjoy it. And yeah, Virgo might have been spending a lot with Venus in that 12th house. So know that as Venus starts to go direct again, it can be a time for Virgo to begin to focus back on themselves and maybe end those spending sprees, and hopefully you spent on the right things. Libra Ascendant has Jupiter in the 8th house, and this is the house of the underworld and the shadow realms and some heavier things. It's an occult house, it's a hidden house, and so Libra Ascendant is likely to be doing a lot of inner work at this time, or shadow work. Libra Ascendant might be facing some loss. Libra Ascendant also might be getting an inheritance. Well, that's not necessarily a good thing. That might mean somebody around you is dying, but anyway, I'm sorry if that's happening. Sometimes astrology is that accurate in these things. It just really depends on the other things in your chart taking place simultaneously that can trigger the energy of that house manifesting in that way. Libra Ascendant with Jupiter in that 8th also might simply be wanting to go into more occult work. So tarot astrology or something of this nature. It might be simply a time to dive deep. It might be a time in which you become reliant on others in some way and moving through your own journey. So don't be afraid. Sometimes we need help to go through that underworld. Scorpio Ascendant has Jupiter in the 7th house, the house of the partner. This is a good time for your partner. This is a time when your partner might be overshadowing you a little bit, and it's important to listen to them and listen to their counsel and everything that they have to offer you. Scorpio Ascendant also might be experiencing a lot of changes in business if they are self-employed or entrepreneurial in any way. So allowing oneself to experience a growth and shift in your relationships and in your business, and being comfortable and collected with how that's playing out. The Venus retrograde was affecting Scorpio's 10th house, so there's also a lot of change and growth in your career, and as Venus starts to move and change signs, a lot of that is going to come to fruition in positive ways. Sagittarius Ascendant has Jupiter moving through the 6th house. And the 6th house is the house of habits, daily routines, health challenges, legal things, and conflicts. This is the heaviest of the heavy houses in some ways. It's less mysterious, it's more just the drudgery, the things we don't like. And if those things don't manifest, usually that means that you've been on top of your habits and you've been on top of keeping things in order. It's the house of our daily habits and routines, because when we do those things and when we are in alignment with ourselves and doing our practices for our body, like yoga, qigong, or working out in the gym, and when we're doing our practices like meditation for our mind and good reading for the mind, and watching things like scrolling too much and watching our eating habits, then we are in a more healthy state. And when we're not, then those shadows of the 6th house that are health challenges and legal troubles and all of this can come to the surface. So Sagittarius Ascendant needs to get on top of those habits, and it's a time of noticing, am I doing what I need to be doing? Am I allowing myself to prioritize my well-being? And noticing how those daily rituals do lead to all of those other things in your life being in order and the way they need to be. Alright, so Capricorn Ascendant. Capricorn Ascendant has Jupiter in the 5th house, and that's a great place as well. This is also a house of learning. It's also a house of creativity. If you have children, it's a really good time to bond with your children. If you're an artist, it's a really good time to focus on new art. If you are a teacher, it's a really good time to bond with your students and maybe create some new programs, new activities for your students. This is a time where you can flourish because there's that trinal aspect on your ascendant, so it's a great time for Capricorns. And that fifth house, which is very much connected with Jupiter, is a house that will bring you happiness and fun. A good thing for the fifth house is make sure that your heart is in it. When your heart is in it and with your children, your students, or whatever your creative projects are, it will flourish. But if your heart isn't in it, it's not really true creativity. And so that's the important thing to question in this Jupiter retrograde. Is your heart in it? Can you bring your heart into it more? So Aquarius ascendant has Jupiter retrograde in the fourth house. And this is the house of family and home. You might be making changes in your home, or there might be growth happening in your family. You might be deepening into a new living situation or expanding your living situation in some ways. The fourth house transit of Jupiter is a great place for Jupiter to be. Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, which is the natural zodiacal connection to the fourth house. So Jupiter is doing well in that fourth house and probably loving it, and blessing your family and blessing your home. And as long as there's no challenging aspects to this fourth house and things of that nature, it's probably a great time for the ascendant in Aquarius. Now, who's next? Oh yeah, the last sign, Pisces. Pisces, who is connected with Jupiter. And so that brings Jupiter into the third house, which is not necessarily the best place for Jupiter to be. Zodiacally connected with Gemini, which is Jupiter's fall. So, not fall, detriment, sorry. Specific words. So Jupiter here in this third house can bring maybe a competitive nature, can bring a lot of desires. It can bring maybe an attitude of wanting to kind of play and go out and do things more. Jupiter is a planet that's naturally connected with a Pisces, so this might be like a phase of feeling a little bit personally rebellious. But you can channel this energy into a positive way with the other connections of the third house, which are learning and short travels. You might find that during this Jupiter retrograde, you take a lot of day trips and get to know the area you're living in or staying in better. Jupiter in the third house is also connected with effort and willpower. The third house is naturally connected with this, right? So it might be a time where you have to work a little bit harder and apply your mind a little bit harder. Though ultimately, it is a time of growth and a time that you might use to better yourself, as long as you don't get too blown around by your own desires. So those are great third house energies. So there we go, there you have it. That's Jupiter retrograde for all the signs, and that was the summary, the general speaking according to Ascendant. And I will say as well that it does depend so much on how the other planets are in your chart and how Jupiter is affecting those and the time periods you're running. I am a Western and a Vedic astrologer, so I use both systems side by side to assess everything on many levels. And this is in a lot of ways in alignment with ancient astrologers and even modern Vedic astrologers who do use many different charts and systems to see all of the variables. So if you want to get a more specific forecast for yourself, I am offering readings, and there is a short-term discount on readings as this Jupiter retrograde is beginning and Venus retrograde is ending. Ooh! So if you'd like to contact me for a reading and dive deeper into your chart, I'm totally available for that and would love to assist you and dive deeper together. I hope you have a really beautiful and blessed day, and thank you again for watching this video. DanteStarshine.com is my website, and you can support in a lot of ways by liking, sharing, and subscribing. I really appreciate that, and thanks again. Have a fantastic day. May the stars and planets bless you today and every day forever. Have a good one.